everyone, and welcome back to On Our Days Off. I am Jordana. This is a space where we are having conversations, making space, and figuring it out. I have my co host, partner, husband, and best friend, Ed, here.
What up, though? How you doing today?
Hello, world.
Hello.
For those of you who follow us, we switched our days. Well, even for those of you who are new to this podcast, we just switched the days that we are airing our episodes on listening platforms and on watching platforms, our YouTube page. Normally, we air new episodes every other Friday. This week is the first week we are changing it to Mondays every other Monday. So this is the first Monday where we're releasing an episode. So if you missed us on Friday, it's because we changed the days we're airing episodes. Sorry about that.
Let's try
So
new things, man.
yeah. So to keep up with us, you can follow us on our Instagram page at On Our Days Off. And like I said, you can catch us on our YouTube page if you'd like to watch On Our Days Off. And you can catch us on listening platforms as well, wherever you get your podcasts at.
All the variety of them.
Yes. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for watching and welcome back. And if you're new, welcome to the pod.
Thank you. Always appreciate it.
Yes. A little bit more serious topic. Recent data came out about Black men, and they are the highest. They are committing rates of suicide higher than any ethnic group in America.
Yeah.
And you know that we're really big on talking about mental health on this podcast and just mental well-being. So I just wanted to touch on that because when I read those numbers, I can't really say that I was surprised that we're hearing about Black men committing suicide at such high rates. But I did not know that they had the highest rates. At least as of this year, 2022, data has come out saying that.
Yeah.
You know, but what did you think about that as a Black man whenever you heard that news?
It is very disheartening. I mean, for sure. Me being a Black man and me who has suffered from things of, depression, and it really sucks to say, but I really feel like it's attributed to the Black man not necessarily being listened to. You know what I mean? Feelings just through society is constantly ignored. We go through issues, it gets ignored. And then, just the low rates of Black males in therapy, not even trying to be proactive in their mental health, that's just going to exasperate things and just make things worse. So, yeah, it's very disheartening. It's very disheartening. It sucks.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it all of those things do exacerbate Black men's mental health. I think what they have to face within communities of color, within Black communities, although we know all Black men don't come from these communities, all Black men are not from the hood, we know that. um, but just Black men growing up in violent neighborhoods,
Yeah.
neighborhoods that lack resources.
There's a lot
As
of
far as
PTSD that comes with that.
yeah, there's that. Yeah, exactly. PTSD. You lack resources in mental health, in education, in employment
Mhm.
opportunities, and just the need to feel on guard in your own neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean,
And then
yeah.
feeling the need to be on guard once you leave your neighborhood as well. I think that does something to your mental health.
Mhm.
Just that feeling of always being on guard and not being able to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not even I mean, I feel like a lot of this isn't really about the man's ability to be vulnerable, even though that is a thing. But when he is vulnerable, he needs to be listened to and heard and respected and not talked down on and not let his problems be used as a weakness towards him. You know what I mean? When a lot of men speak up on their issues, it often times gets used against them. So at least I did. I'm just going to speak for myself. It made me just hold a lot of things in that I probably shouldn't have been, because when I did open up to people, it was oftentimes used against me and being talked about me or whatever behind my back. It's just always used against me.
You mean, give me an example. What do you mean being used against you?
So let's just say you're going through an issue that's been, you just want to talk to a friend about it, right? and you talk to this friend, and then next thing you know, the friend tells another friend, and then you become the butt of the joke just because you came to somebody with something that was very personal to you,
Hmm.
something that was really hurting you, but it was ultimately used to make you feel lesser than. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's interesting you said that because, excuse me, whenever I was just preparing for this and I was reading different things, in many cases where once these black men, and it's a lot of black youth, I want to also touch on that. It's young black men
Mhm.
committing suicide at high rates. Lots of times the parents are coming out and saying that there were no warning signs that anything was wrong.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to what you just said, that when you do open up, it's not taken seriously.
Mhm.
So I think that just makes men not want to open up, period, in general.
Mhm.
So if men are not opening up and being vulnerable about their mental health and how they really feel and honest about their emotions, it totally makes sense why there's no warning signs. And then it's just like the big thing happens.
Then we're oftentimes just told to like man up, suck it up, you know. So I mean, what are we to do?
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I think that's a part of it, that goes back to I think how our parents were raised and then how
Mhm.
they raised us. Lots of times in the black community, it's like, like how you said, suck it up, be tough. And
Mhm.
it's not even just specifically black men, it's just men in general.
Men
They're
in
taught to,
general, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
men in general are taught to be tough and protect and provide. And I do
Mhm.
feel like those are important things. You need to, I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting a partner who can protect you and provide for you. I don't think
No,
there's anything wrong with that.
no,
But also, I think there's something to be said when that becomes the main focus of
or the
the
only focus.
the only focus of a man. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
What that's what is expected of them, and that is what they pressure themselves to be. Like, if I'm not protecting and providing, what is my purpose? What am I doing here?
I mean, I would say that truth be told is kind of the original purpose of man, if that's what you want to believe. There's nothing wrong with being a protector or provider or vice versa, but either way, no matter how you cut it, you need to take care of yourself.
Yes.
You just have to take care of yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably something that doesn't get talked. I mean, how do you feel? Do you think that growing up, you were really taught to take care of yourself, or even now
Oh, absolutely
when
not.
you're having conversations with your friends and men your age, how many of them talk about self care or what they do to take care of themselves? Is that even a conversation?
I mean, truth be told, when I talk to a lot of my male friends and I'm out here getting I might just go be getting my hair retwisted or a haircut, or I might go take care of my eyebrows or whatever. The sentence is like, or I might even be shopping for something, and the sentence is like, "Oh, you treat yourself like a female," which is insane because, like, how is taking care of yourself being male or female? You know what
Right.
I mean? So to answer your question is just to go back is I mean usually when I'm talking to my friends about mental health or just self-help or taking care of self, the conversations usually just passed by, or I'm bougie, or you know what I mean, it's
Yeah.
always downplayed.
Yeah. I mean, and that just goes back to that. That's just a part I feel like of masculine norms.
Mm,
It's just,
toxic exit.
yeah.
It's
It's
toxic.
just, it's just like, don't worry about taking care of yourself. You have need to make sure you're taking care of your partner, take care of your family, which those are important things.
Yeah,
You do
but you
need to be
can't
taking care of your partner and your family, but how can you be an effective partner, whether father, friend, brother, just effective and healthy in your relationships if you do not have a relationship with yourself and your emotions? That all that stuff
absolutely.
builds up.
You can't do anything healthy if you are not at your base is healthy yourself. You have bad roots, the tree's going to grow messed up. You know what I mean? So you have to prioritize yourself. I think we kind of talked on this last episode about just the personal selfishness and the personal responsibility. of taking care of yourself in spite of what the world is doing to you. I mean, that's something that I've had to push through and learn myself. Like, people are always going to do something to you. There's always going to be something said, no matter whether it's good or bad or great. Ultimately, take care of self. And if that extends to wife, kids, family, then great. But you have to take care of that thing.
Yeah, it
Men,
starts with yourself
you
so
have
that
to
you
take
can.
care. uh,
Yeah.
go ahead. Sorry.
No, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was going to just agreeing with you that you do have to pour into yourself so you can pour into others.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Um, what made you initially seek help, seek therapy? Like, I just
Uh,
want to know, like, talk about your journey to actually starting addressing your mental health.
that is so layered. Just to give it the original basis of me going to therapy was, I mean, honestly, this me just not being happy with my life, the things that the way I was necessarily moving through life. I wasn't necessarily respecting myself, for one. And yes, that does damage other people when you don't take care of self. And then, childhood trauma and, the gambit, whatever you think you can go to therapy for, that's what I went to therapy for. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
but ultimately, I guess my breaking point was being in my early 20s and still not necessarily moving or being the person that I felt like that I should be. I was still being a little wild, reckless out here, and I just had to get that under control. And then I realized, that these problems were rooted in who I am, or they were taught to me. They're rooted in the way that I move through life. So if I don't address them, then how can I ever expect growth?
Right.
So I
Right.
just had a moment of self realization of how I was moving and just decided that that's not the way I want to be. That's not the way I want to move through life. So I took the personal accountability to go take care of myself.
I think to go back to what you said, how you talked about, childhood trauma and the person that you were in life at the time.
Mhm.
Um, I think a lot of that is connected to how the examples that we have growing up,
No
right?
example.
Yeah. So,
Lack thereof.
yeah, or lack thereof. Unfortunately, and we know this is not true for all Black men,
Mhm.
but or Black households or Black families, but it's not uncommon to have a Black household that does not have a father in the household,
Yeah.
right?
Unfortunately, it's very
Yeah.
uncommon. Now I
Right.
won't say very. Those tads are kind of changing, but at least through my generation and what I've grown up around, I mean, majority.
Right. You mean it's very common, not uncommon.
Yeah. I'm sorry. It was
Yeah.
very common. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, the same
Um,
same thing. Uncommon, common,
yeah.
whatever.
No, I would just wanted to make sure that
Yeah,
your
we're
message
good.
was clear.
We're good.
But yeah, that and I think it's interesting because, I had both parents in the household growing up. My dad protected us, he provided for us. Both of my parents worked.
Yeah.
But just for the sake of the conversation, because they're talking about Black men,
Mhm.
he worked and he was present in our household.
Mhm.
But also looking back, and now that I'm on my own journey of healing and addressing things that I want to work on in my about my own self, my dad didn't, I wouldn't say he didn't have that space, but
Mhm.
he, looking back, like I know I would see my dad crying like throughout my life growing up, crying. And looking back now, I know he was suffering from depression.
Mhm.
And learning things that he went through in his childhood. I know there's things that he just never healed from.
Yeah.
And just looking at his coping mechanisms, um, I just feel like he definitely would have benefited from getting help for his mental health.
Yeah.
Um, but just because you do have that protection and provider there, I think it's also important for children to see healthy coping behaviors or people,
Mhm.
be children being taught how to address their emotions.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
looking back, my dad, he loved us very much, but I don't think he addressed his emotions, but probably because maybe he did not have that in his childhood.
Yeah.
Because I don't think back then for him or even for his parents, they were having these conversations about mental health.
Oh, absolutely
Yeah,
not.
we can have it now because of them, I
See,
think.
I think they were having conversations. It's just, again, the personal responsibility of enacting to doing the work to change that, Tad, is the thing. I feel like everybody at the basis knows like something's off. You know what I mean? I feel
Yeah.
like I'm not saying everybody does, but like you feel that something's off. You know what I mean?
You
So,
feel that something's off, but just to speak to what you said,
mm,
and I don't know that my dad ever spoke to anyone about how he was really feeling emotionally, but just to even speak to what you said about how when you spoke to your friends,
mm.
they kind of didn't take it seriously.
Oh yeah, absolutely not.
So I think
Still don't.
now because we have like social media, and this is more, I think we're hearing more conversations about mental health, depending on who you follow on social media,
Yeah,
depending
yeah,
on who your circle is.
yeah.
I don't want to speak for everybody,
Mm.
but um, I don't think that this conversation was at the forefront for our parents or our grandparents back then. I'm not saying that
Yeah.
we didn't love they didn't love each other or they weren't accepting of each other, but as far as actually getting help,
It was definitely a different time of life. I very much understand that we live in a time where we have the privilege, the exercise, the right to I mean, it's not a right, that we have the privilege to go seek mental health and not worry about feeding the kids. You know what I mean?
right?
It definitely, unfortunately, is considered a luxury in life. You know what I mean? And if you ain't got the luxury, it's kind of tough,
Yeah, and that's the unfortunate part, because that is,
which is ridiculous. Therapy should not be a luxury,
yeah,
but whatever.
it's unfortunate because that's often the case for a lot of Black youth, Black men, is that they don't have access to it in their neighborhoods or
Mm-hmm.
just in general. And then unfortunately, sometimes when they do have access to it, sometimes they're running into, and this is not everyone because there are great clinicians out there because I've had them, but some people who are not culturally competent in understanding how Black men have to walk through this world. Um, so, and then, there's a smaller percentage of Black psychologists and clinicians than there are of white, or at least
All are
other ethnicities. So that's
damn near
also something
macro.
else that I read was that Black men are unlikely to seek help because
Mhm.
they fear they won't be understood.
Yeah. And honestly, truth be told, it's a very logical fear. If you're not being understood by the people you feel are closest to you, then how could you ever feel listened to by a stranger? And I
Yeah,
think that's the biggest problem people have with mental going to go seek therapy is the stranger aspect. It's like it's stranger. I talked to my boys, I talked to my mom about this. That's fine. But like, no, you have to get outside perspective in your life. No, got to drop that fear.
yeah,
But
I
access, just to talk about access, it really is unfortunate that it's looked on as a luxury. And then Black people tend to feel more comfortable around Black people. So when there's a very small pool of therapists who are Black, you know, do the math.
right, exactly, exactly. To speak to what you said, I read a great article. I felt it was a really great article. It was very informative. I found this on the American Psychological Association website. It is titled Black Men's Mental Health Matters. Psychologists are working to develop more effective ways of promoting Black men's mental health. And in this article, this counseling psychologist, Jessica L. Jackson, PhD, when she was doing her postdoc at the Los Angeles VA, her and another colleague, they formed a racial trauma support group for veterans of color. And she found that this arrangement proved at least as effective as one-on-one therapy, which I thought was very interesting because
That it was a group therapy setting.
it was a group
Okay.
session type of thing, yes, but she said it proved to be as effective as one-on-one therapy because um, the men in this group, they were able to develop a language. They were able to name their emotions. They were able to connect over something. And she had
Mhm.
stated that even after these group therapy sessions ended, a lot of these men still met up outside of the sessions and became friends.
Beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think to speak to what you said, in order to address Black men's mental health, Black men have to address their mental health and have to have conversations about it.
Yeah. You gotta get over the whole it's for white people. I don't need nobody knowing my problems. I'll figure out on myself. I'm not saying that you're not, but like, come on. You have to get over it. Unfortunately, it's a tough message to hear, but ultimately when you're what you're doing when you're doing that is you're hurting yourself. You're making things worse. You're ignoring the problem. And don't think just because I'm I'm just going to go home, I'm going to have a drink, I'm going to have me a smoke, we'll be fine. Like no, that is a band-aid and you need to talk to a professional. Professional help is always probably the preferred choice when it comes to mental health. You have to talk to somebody,
Yeah.
not the homie, not the wife, not the girlfriend, not the baby mom with the wife on the side. None of that. You need to talk to someone. Okay.
Yeah, and this is not to say like don't talk to your circle about what you're
Oh
going
no,
on. We're not saying
absolutely.
don't talk to them, but we're I think at least from our experiences, because we are not mental health professionals, but we
Or
both have
not.
been through therapy. I think what we're trying to say is that use professional help in addition to your community, whether that's your
Absolutely.
partner, your friends, church, because we know church, religion is a really big part in the Black community and in Black culture. Um, Even though all of those things I feel like are important pieces to the puzzle in healing,
Mm.
it still is not the same as seeking professional help. So
And then
I think we
also,
go ahead.
truth be told, not to cut you off, some people might not have a village.
Yeah.
They might not have a support structure. So it definitely is a good place to start.
Yeah, that's true. I
Yeah.
agree with that. And to even add to what you just said, um, I think it's important to acknowledge, whether you do have a tribe or you don't have a tribe, that would you agree that, as a man and as a Black man, that men tend to cope however their tribe copes or however it is accepted in their environment, like they're doing what the people around them do. So if you don't see your father, or if you don't have a father in your household or a male figure in your household, or if you do have male figures in your household, you're going to cope however you see them coping,
Yeah.
you know.
We are all products of our environment, right? Saying the same thing. You only know what you know. You deal with things the only way that you know how to deal with things. And though you may feel like they're helping you, maybe figuring out a different way, especially if it's not working, might be beneficial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to have grace with yourself,
Oh,
because I think
God.
lots of times it's hard to have grace with yourself, because then you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, what was I doing? Like I shouldn't have did this, I shouldn't did that. But it's
That's the thing
important
I'm
to
in
know,
practice with now. It's just
yeah,
having grace. Yeah.
yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
important to have grace with yourself, because lots of times until you know better, you're just doing what you know, and you're
Yeah.
doing what you see, and you're doing what you're taught.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I think it's important to also understand that the person that you were, and you can even speak to this, that the person you were before you actually got help, when you got the tools
Mm-hmm.
to function better and become a healthier person inside and out,
Yeah.
you just didn't know any better. But when you know better, you do better.
And even honestly, man, some of my actions, it's not that you aren't aware of what you are doing. Sometimes you might know you're doing something stupid. It's just that it might, due to you not knowing how to deal with things, it might lead you to doing something stupid, though you're very aware that you're doing something stupid, right? That's why you just have to deal with that stuff. What was the last comment that you made? I'm sorry. 'Cause I had something to say about that.
No, I was just saying that when you know better, you do better. So have
Oh, yeah,
grace
for
with
sure.
yourself, because sometimes you're just doing what you were taught,
Yeah.
or what
Yeah.
you saw growing up, or what you
Mm-hmm.
see in the current environment around you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Products of environment, baby.
Yeah. And like what you said, sometimes you know that what you're doing isn't healthy or you shouldn't do it. But also, I think it's just because it's those feelings of hopelessness. Like, well,
Oh,
no one's going to
absolutely.
listen to me anyways. No one believes me when I tell them what's wrong with me or how I'm feeling.
That's how I felt in a lot of moments of my life, it was like, well, what does it matter? You know what I mean? Just that
Yeah.
hopelessness, like, well, what does it matter? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is damaging, you know? You gotta nip that stuff in the butt. You really
Yeah.
do. Uh you have to.
Yeah. I think not I think I know just as your partner and your friend that you going to therapy has helped you become a better communicator.
Yeah, for sure.
But what do
Uh
you think about that? How do you feel about therapy and communicating now?
I feel like I've always been well, how do I feel about it? I always felt like I was an effective communicator. You know what I mean? I didn't necessarily put things in the manner to where people can understand. I understood, you know what I mean? But going to therapy, it definitely enhances your communication because that's all it is. You're building a rapport with somebody about the deepest, darkest things in your life, or the happiest, joyous things in your life, whatever. You're building a rapport. And through that, it doesn't work without communication. You know, if you can't talk to your therapist, you know, or if you can't communicate with your lover, how can you ever expect to get anything done? Communication is key. It helped me become a more effective communicator because it just helped me slow down my thought process. You know, we call it think before you speak. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Or yeah. So just as far as with it helping me with communication was for sure key. I mean, I couldn't be here doing this right now without that. You know, and it's still a work in progress. And I want to be very careful because we both said this is like just because you go to therapy doesn't mean you walk out of it a totally different person. You're still probably living with some things, you know, so you still have to practice, you still have to continuously get better afterwards. But what honestly made me a more effective communicator is honestly being with somebody who's willing to communicate. You know, it's really not anything that I became a better communicator for myself because I want to communicate with people. But honestly, like if you're talking to somebody who is not a willing communicator or doesn't benefit that, what that communication is for you, it doesn't matter. I'm a more effective communicator because you are a more effective listener and a communicator with me. You know what I mean? It doesn't work if I'm just an effective communicator and you're not. It doesn't work, just as far as like communication within our relationship, in our
Right.
marriage.
Right.
I am a more effective communicator because you are, you know.
Yeah. And I think that to add to what you said, it's because we both have decided to create a space where we can make it safe for each of us to be vulnerable. Um, but just as a man, um, you became more effective at communicating. But did therapy also make you feel more safe to be vulnerable? Like clearly in the sessions, you were opening up and being vulnerable. But I mean, when you walk out into the world and in other relationships, how do you feel about being vulnerable as a man now?
I mean, honestly, I've definitely gotten better at being more vulnerable just with the people that I'm closest to, but it's still something that I struggle with. I am an introverted person. I'm not by nature an open person. It's not hard, but I have to push myself to be open with people. It's not something that's natural to me. It might not ever come natural. You know what I mean? It's always something that I have to push and strive to do. Uh,
And I think that's fine
yeah,
because I mean, even for me, I mean, I think we both can say that, yeah, you're definitely the introvert in this relationship. Even though I feel like I'm shy at times.
you've definitely taken a
Yeah.
shift since pandemic.
Yeah.
You've
Yeah.
crept
I
into the introverted world a little bit more.
yeah, it has made me a little bit more introvert. And I'm still
Yes, for
shy at
sure.
times, even though I feel like
I'm
I would
always
probably
shy.
spark a conversation with a stranger
Mm. Oh, I would never do
first.
that.
You know, I would be the first one to do that. But what I'm saying is that I understand not wanting to be vulnerable with everyone because, like how you said, sometimes you open up to people and they don't really care, or they start to make fun of you. So I think there is um there is like this like gauge that you need to assess in like being vulnerable with people in order to protect yourself. And I think while vulnerability does help you to connect with people, everyone doesn't need to know everything about you.
Absolutely.
Um, so I think there is like this,
But I
yeah.
argue that against a therapist. That,
Right. Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
different when you're in session, but like how you said, when you're speaking with colleagues or family or
Oh yeah.
friends or whatnot,
Everything's
I
not for
think,
everybody.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I think I used to struggle with like, oh, well, if I don't tell them this about me, am I really being true to myself or
Mhm.
authentic? Or, but everyone doesn't need to know every single thing about you.
Yeah.
Um, but like how you said, vulnerability does create connection, and I think that we need to keep having these conversations, because unfortunately I think it's more acceptable for a woman to be vulnerable. um but we need to start
Right.
making spaces for men to open up about their emotions,
Yeah.
because clearly it's an area that we can get better in, because I think that's why we're seeing these higher rates in black men committing suicide.
That's
Because do
exactly.
we
Oh,
do
sorry.
we
Go ahead.
have enough spaces where black men can be themselves, and just men in general?
Yeah.
We know there's data out there that says that men are less likely to seek help
Mm,
around their mental health, but that number is even smaller when it comes to black men,
yeah. Of
you
course.
know.
Yeah.
So,
I also feel like a lot of black men have that pride of men in general, but I'm just going to speak specifically for black men, have that pride of like, if I'm seeking help, then I'm weak. Again,
yes.
it's not always the world that's causing something. Sometimes it's yourself. Sometimes it's you. You have to admit that. You know what I mean? Everybody has problems. Everybody goes through stuff, but sometimes it really is you. You know, if you know you're struggling, you cannot keep ignoring it. You know, there is a point where no matter what in this world is causing you whatever stresses in your life or depression or whatever, if you never personally take responsibility to go do it, then I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
um so you're just saying like, I think it's no one's whenever you're experiencing things, it's about making sure that we place the blame where it belongs, because
absolutely.
a lot of times things happen to us. um and like we said, this is from childhood into adulthood and just throughout life. It's
For the
important to
finger to
place
point.
the blame it's important to place the blame where it belongs.
Yeah,
But you're saying that, even though things happen to you sometimes and it's not your fault, it is your
yeah,
responsibility to go out there and get help, to try
exactly.
to seek help.
So, like, example of what I'm talking about, if you're getting bullied in life, it's not an excuse to go shoot up a school. You know what I mean?
Okay.
The bullying's rough. It's tough. It should not be happening to you, but you cannot go out there and cause more damage
Yeah.
because that's not okay either. Just because somebody's bullying you,
Right.
that's not okay. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, yeah, I think you hit
Yeah.
exactly what I was trying to touch on. Just give an example.
Yeah. No, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we just have to, like I said, we just have to keep having these conversations and making space. And we need men and we need black men to open up about what they're going through.
I would really
Because,
love to have this conversation with like another man for a future episode. So if you guys are watching this and you're at all interested in, you know, we can have a conversation. This is
yeah,
what I
if you're watching or listening, definitely you can hit us up. You can slide into the DMs on our Instagram
or
and
just hit up the
help.
comment section too.
Or hit up the comment section. Yeah.
Or you can slide into the DMs. That's fine too.
Yeah. So, well, we hope that this conversation helps anyone who is suffering in silence, who maybe feels that they're not being heard or being seen. We just want to let you know that we do hear you and we do see you, even though we maybe physically can't see you. And We hope that this really encourages our men and especially our Black men to go get help. We need you all. We need you as fathers. We need you as brothers, friends,
Does
protectors, and you all need each other. Black men need other Black men.
and it does not make you weak, fragile, or any less of a man
Yeah.
for going to go seek help
Yes. Yes. And I'm
to make
saying this
yeah,
because I had to come to this realization that actually asking for help is a sign of strength.
yeah,
It's not a sign of weakness. Asking for help is a sign of strength.
absolutely.
So knowing
Something
the
I
areas,
learned in life too.
yeah, and knowing the areas that you lack in, know that there are people out there who can pour into those areas that you lack in, and that's okay because we don't all have it together and we don't all have it all. So
I
please get help, talk to your family, talk to your friends. If you don't have a tribe, find a professional or find a space. So yeah, we hope this conversation helped.
thank you guys for listening.
Yes, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And you can catch us here on our days off. Like we said, you can stay up to date with us on our Instagram at On Our Days Off. And we will see you here every other Monday on our YouTube page on our days off and on listening platforms wherever you listen to your podcast at.
Thank you guys for listening. Always a pleasure. Will love to keep this conversation going, that does not work without you. So
Right.
please join in the conversation. So
Yes. All right, everyone. Live well. Take care. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can stay up to date with us by following us on our Instagram page at On Our Days Off. You can catch us on our YouTube page, or you can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts.